Hello, it's Matt O'Leary, and how are your organs doing today? Mine are pretty good, all thanks to this guy. All-around music man Cass McCombs from Concord, California, hit back in 2019 with his 9th album and a very prosperous, very prodigious 15-plus year career. And this one's called Tip of the Sphere. Not spear, but sphere, you know, the round one. I don't know about Cass McCombs. He's sort of always come across to me as a very middling songwriter. He's certainly a talented guy, but his albums have never really reached a tipping point for me, from this agreeable alt-country sound to anything truly remarkable. He's dabbled a little bit in psychedelia, a little bit in punk on previous records like A Folk Set Apart or Catacombs, which was my favorite album until 2016's Mangy Love. Mangy Love marked a significant jump in production value and in clarity, in my opinion. It just sounds twice as lush as anything before it, and it features, you know, possibly Cass's most diverse set of tracks. From the very clear Pink Floyd references on It to the jazz-infused Laughter is the Best Medicine. And although I really grooved, I really liked that album, there's still not an album from Cass that I'd recommend to friends in the midst of just this abundance of folk rock records out there. Cass's music has the very heartfelt, the very sentimental nature of, like, Elliott Smith. But there's always this very irreverent, wry sense of humor underlying everything, like Kurt Weill. He's doing both those things, but just not nearly as potently, not nearly as powerfully as Kurt or Elliott. Cass does go a very Kurt Weill route on this record, with these very long, repetitive songs all built around one pleasant guitar motif. The opening track just plants itself down and just digs hard into the same groove for 8 minutes. Cass lets out these very Jim James-esque howls, and there really isn't a lot more to it. I do like the sense of space that Cass opens up on this album. It sounds a lot like a live album in that sense, with these extended jams that really just warm a room in which you're listening. The closer Rounder is another one that does that pretty well, but neither of these very lengthy songs reach any sort of peak or climax in any interesting way. The minor touches, the soloing and noodling that goes on sounds very improvised, and I definitely prefer the synth work on Rounder to the almost agitating guitar squealing on I Followed the River South to What. The song Estrella is definitely my album highlight, with another arpeggiated electric riff and every chord in the progression hitting on a new mood and touching on another emotional shade. I love the very wholesome sound of the Americana, which just wraps you in a big blanket, but then he just hits you with this menacing minor chord and you're like, Cass, just don't do it to me, baby. The ending drifts into this totally unexpected light finger strumming and some ambient guitar buzzing and some really gorgeous Spanish crooning from Cass. It's the most progressive track from a purely structural perspective. Now, the most progressive or unique or forward-thinking track, not from a structural perspective, but more from just the instrumental palette that it draws from, is definitely Real Life. Cass has always done a nice job of interpolating some Eastern flair into his Americana thing, and in that respect, this song just nails it with some light acoustic fingerpicking and some piano twinkles mixed with the tabla. It's such a nice and soothing combination. He takes that traditional Indian raga and presents it in this pastoral folk setting. It's just, again, he nails it. Lyrically, Cass decides to cycle through his usual esoteric ruminations and every once in a while throwing in a bizarre and quirky reference that sort of steals the mood of the song. He usually does find a way to insert some left-wing political commentary in there, but it's rarely this oversimplified, you know, ideological platitude. On the last two albums, he does paint the state of the world. He paints just the state of America, I guess, is very turbulent, very dark, very unjust. I don't know if the evidence really bears that out. The average American has a relatively incredible quality of life. But again, I don't see Cass as a talking head or ideologically possessed or something. I feel like he's a guy with a lot of thoughts, most of them pretty inconsequential. I love the "Help Me Armageddon" line though, that's really sticky, and there's some other little emotionally evocative tidbits here and there. Like the song "Tying Up Loose Ends," which just so poignantly touches on the experience of looking through some old photos and feeling like your ancestors have faded away completely, like they have no discernible legacy anymore. It's a really good song. Besides that very genuine, very relatable track, I don't feel like there's an idea or a theme I really latched onto. And that really sums up the entire experience for me. It could have been a functional album with a steady folk identity and a solid flow, but he just had to add the very painful American Canyon Sutra. Between this disgusting gong sound and this lifeless hip-hop beat and this deadpan spoken word about a dilapidated rural town, it's such a dud. I just feel like Cass has churned out another deeply mediocre album, almost the definition of a 6 out of 10. If you do feel like there is something unique or special about Cass McCombs, or if there's a specific song or album that really touches you or moves you, then do let me know, because I am interested and open to hear it, but this one did feel a little bit flat for me. Just a decent album, and that's really it. So as always, thank you so much for watching.